Hi, welcome back to Jane's Stories of Life. First of all, let me just start with this disclaimer. I do not like shopping. I'm one of those, what I call a drive-by shopper. If I have something I need to buy, I go into a store, I walk around quickly, I survey, just look left, look right, look straight ahead. If I see what it is I'm looking for, I stop and examine it and buy it, and then I'm out the door. I don't linger. I don't stop and feel this and try this and do that. No, I really don't enjoy shopping. But one thing I have enjoyed for years is shopping malls. I grew up in the day of department stores. Malls were not around when I was a child. You know, you went downtown to the big department stores when you wanted to shop. They were wonderful experiences. Floor after floor of all kinds of merchandise. You had your elevators with the elevator operators. Floor, please. You had your escalators. It was just wonderful. Growing up in Cleveland, we had Higbee's, Halle's, May Company, Sterling Winthrop Lab, Sterling Linder Davis, that was it. If you went to New York, you had Macy's and Gimbel's. If you went to Chicago, it was Marshall Field's. If you went to Detroit, it was Hudson's. When you were in Philadelphia, it was Wanamaker. Those were the big names in department stores in the East. I don't know anything about the beyond Chicago and West. Malls came into being as cities expanded, as suburbs grew. Malls came into being in the late 50s and early 60s, where everything was under one roof. You know, the climate was controlled. It was, the food courts and the various stores. And I loved Northland Mall when I lived in Detroit. That was one of the largest malls in the mid-60s. In Cleveland, we had Severance Center, which I went to frequently because it wasn't too far from where we lived. When I moved to the Albany, New York, Schenectady area, we had Colony Center. And near Schenectady, we had a new mall in 1969, 1970, Mohawk Mall, which was very convenient. The summer that John was an infant, well, he was less than a year. Cindy was less than 2 years old. Morgan was in a graduate program at the University of Connecticut. So he was there for the week. And here I was in Schenectady with these two little children all week. We stayed in the mall. I think their first words were Hawk Mall, because every time we got in the car, they thought we were going to the mall. It was air conditioned. It was warm. We loved Mohawk Mall. Colony Center in between Schenectady and Albany was where Morgan and I, before we had our children, sometimes we were broke. we didn't have much money. I remember one Friday night, our date night, as they now call it, was going to Sears or Colony Center to buy a wrench or a screwdriver or some tool we needed for our house. So malls were important for those reasons. When we traveled as family, we stopped at malls for rest stops. When we needed a break from driving, we found a mall, because within that mall, we could cool off, we could exercise, there were food courts, we could get something to eat that wasn't too expensive, and we always stopped for at least an hour, maybe more, at Walden Bookstore, where we would each buy something to read in the car, something to read while we were on vacation. I mean, that was just one of our routines. Stopping at a mall was a wonderful place to stop when you were traveling. Now, in recent years, malls have kind of been replaced once again by a different means of shopping. Oh yeah, let me not forget, on one of our trips to Cleveland, we happened to be there the opening day for I think it was called Randall Mall, which was new in Warrensville Center. So that was exciting. We were hoping to win some of the door prizes, and it was just a good time to be there for opening day for Randall Mall. Now things have changed. Malls are not as significant as they were. But even as our children were growing up, they went to the movie at the mall. Nowadays, teenagers don't go to malls maybe as much. I'm not a person who normally has a bucket list, but one thing that was on my list for a long time was that I wanted to experience the Mall of America in Minneapolis. It happened when I was a Creative Memories consultant. Their annual conferences or conventions were held in Minneapolis. So the first year that we went to the convention, Morgan went along with me, and we had to find a place for him to have dialysis. He was on dialysis at that time. There were two requirements. We had to find a place for him to have dialysis, and we had to stay an extra day so that we could go to the Mall of America. I was just so happy that that dream was finally fulfilled, and we had a great time that day. The next 2 years, when I went to the next two conventions, once again, I planned an extra day each time so that I could spend the day at the Mall of America. So, as I say, I'm not a shopper. I don't like shopping, but I certainly enjoyed malls. I have not been to a mall in I don't know how long. I haven't been to Millennium Mall since I've been here in the Orlando area. I've been to one of the restaurants that surrounds the mall, but I haven't been inside a mall in a long time. But I have so many great memories of time spent wandering around in various malls. So whatever you enjoy, find a way to enjoy it, cherish your memories, and pass them on. Have a good day. Bye-bye. Well, in my recording I just did about malls, I left out Dover. I left out my experiences in Delaware. Shame, shame. So that I'm adding this to the video. When I first went to Dover, the first time as a family member, shortly after Morgan and I got married, the mall there was the Blue Hen Mall. There was a small, Delaware is small, so everything was smaller. Let me put it that way. The Blue Hen Mall was the only mall in the Dover area. And then by the time we moved there, they had built Dover Mall, which was a little more extensive. If you really wanted more of a mall experience, you had to drive like 45 miles up to the Wilmington, Newark area to Christiana Mall. And so those were, as I say, let me not leave those out. Those were the malls that I've dealt with or went to during the 29 years when we lived in Delaware. So let me not forget that. Since I'm doing this without my stand, I'm wearing today my Orlando Alumni Chapter shirt, my OAC, one of my OAC shirts from my chapter here in Orlando. I had lunch today with one of my sorors. Here we have been meeting each other and seeing each other at various events. And so today, Soror Gwen Barnes Butler and I had lunch together, and it was nice. It was nice. So I have on my OAC shirt today, as you can see. Okay, that's it. I have to be fair to everywhere I lived. All right. Cherish your memories and pass them on.